Today I want to just point out two features that I think are kind of underappreciated in LabKey. And one is the ability to add a uniqueness constraint to a field. This is just a little feature. It's really powerful, but it's kind of buried under there, and I just wanted to kind of point it out. And then also I wanted to briefly look at adding an index to a field. That you maybe are amazed that you could do that in LabKey, but you can. So first, let's take a look at uniqueness constraints. Look, what is a uniqueness constraint? Well, it ensures that each data value in a field or column is unique and non-repeating. Basically, it just bans duplicate data from a field. Why would you want to do that? Well, in cases where you say want to prevent duplicate data in your field, but also can help enforce data entry from users. It kind of limits what they can put in the field. A lot of data types are just kind of naturally unique and call for this kind of configuration. For example, like email, barcodes, ID numbers, those kind of things. As a side benefit, also, it actually might increase performance on your table and on some queries. And I'll get into why that is later. So some good example scenarios for using a uniqueness constraint. As I've said, ID columns, things like sample IDs and patient IDs are often called for this kind of configuration. Also, when you have like lists of unique types or categories, you might want to put a uniqueness constraint on them so you don't end up with sort of two categories that are spelled just ever so slightly different or whatnot. Things like antibody types or cell lines or instruments, things like that. Also, as I mentioned, barcodes and also alternate names and IDs can be a great kind of addition to a table. And you can configure them with a uniqueness constraint. So how do you do this? Well, I've written out how to do this here, but I'll just demo it to you. Basically, you just go into your table designer, go to your target field, and then I'll show you sort of how to get in there. So I've got right here a table that I've uploaded, and it's got this subject ID field, and I really want to make this unique. I want to constrain it so that all these values have to be unique. Right now, it's not constrained in that way, and somebody else could come in here and enter a subject ID S0001, and we'd end up with two IDs that might create confusion. So here's my table I want to work with. I'm going to go with the designer. I'm going to go to that field subject ID, which, by the way, I mean, maybe I kind of regret this list the way I set it up. I made the key an auto-incrementing integer, but I also could have just made it the subject ID, but it's not like too late now and I've got to either have to throw the list away or whatnot. Instead, I'm going to just configure my subject ID so it has to be unique. So I'm going to expand it. And I think here's why this feature can sometimes be a little hidden. It's behind this advanced settings button. And it's right at the bottom here. Require all lists to be unique. Great. I'm going to save that, apply it, save the new design. And great, well, what happened? Well, nothing happened really yet but the behavior, the insert behavior is different now. So let's go and add a new row and see if we can get the constraint to sort of show up. So I'm going to insert a new row, and here's where I'm going to make this mistake. I'm going to say, I want to enter a new subject ID, S0001, and let's say their blood type is A positive, and their date of birth is 11 2001. When I go to enter, I get a warning or an error. It says the duplicate key value violates the constraint. The value here, S1, S0001 already exists. Well, I got to back up. I got to think again before I do this. So I got to go find this real ID or something. So I've been prevented from putting duplicate values into that list. Great. And so some questions that I had about this, like what happens if there's already data in the table? Well, we already saw that's okay. You can do it. You can still add a uniqueness constraint to a table with data in it. That's okay. But what if the data already has duplicates in it? It's actually okay too. The server will actually give you a warning. It'll say you're trying to add a uniqueness constraint to a field which has duplicate values in it. You can't do that. So go back and clean up your duplicates and then come put the uniqueness constraint on it. If you go to the primary site log file, you'll actually be able to see which values are duplicate. You don't need to write any kind of query or anything. We'll be able to supply that for you. So second, let's talk about adding an index to a field. So what is an index? Well, it's a kind of a database structure or a database device that sort of pre-sorts or pre-organizes the data, making it easier to find. And I think a good analogy here is, imagine you're looking for a word or occurrences of a word in a large book. Without an index, you have to page through all the pages and look for the word. And it's very tedious and very expensive. But with an index, you just kind of flip to the back and there's a little index that it says, that here's all the page numbers where that word occurs. Kind of the same kinds of things are happening in the database when you add an index. So why use an index? Well, it's really the primary reason is that it will increase performance. It makes it easier to find that word in the book, or it makes it easier to run that query, especially things like joins can really improve their speed and performance. You can have faster searches, faster sorting and filtering just in the ordinary web UI grid. And also it just generally avoids full scans of the data. So to add an index, we don't really give you a way to do it in the GUI, in the user interface. This is something where you do need to write a little bit of code, but we actually give you that code to do this, and there's a number of ways to do it. You can do it with modifying some XML. You can also do it through the LabKey client API, the domain API. So if you know a little bit of a little bit of JavaScript, Python, or R, all of those three languages let you add an index. I'll spare you the code, but it's not complicated, and we actually provide the code snippets in this doc here to sort of get you going. I'm no great developer, and I was able to do this without any big problem. By the way, there are two kinds of indices that you can add. That one is for a column with unique values, and one is for a column of non-unique values. And I've added a index of non-unique values to this table. What I did is I added an index to the blood type column. And how many blood types are in this column? There's 8 or 9 here. And you may not know it, but it really speeds up things like sorting and filtering and whatnot. That's a 100,000 row table, and it's just sorting and filtering like very quickly. And really, I'm out of time here, but definitely take a look at this doc called Manual Index Creation for some more details on that. Full disclosure a little bit, there's a bit of a trade-off when you add an index. It can often, although it might speed up queries, it can also slow down data entry. So if data entry, the speed of data entry is super important to you, you might consider, comparing, doing some A/B comparison to index and not index. But